Wow, it's hard to believe, but it's the last session of the day. C'est vraiment difficile à croire, mais nous voici à la dernière séance de la journée. Over the past 2 days, we've heard from industry leaders, thinkers, and experts on a variety of topics and issues. We've looked at our present, and we've gazed into what the future may hold for the travel and tourism industry. In this final session, we'll be exploring how national action plans affect you in your respective province or territory, and how your region is working with TIAC to rebuild Canada's visitor economy. Lors de cette dernière séance, nous étudierons comment les plans d'action nationaux vous concernent dans votre province ou territoire respectif et comment votre région collabore avec l'AITC pour rebâtir l'économie touristique et l'industrie du voyage du Canada. We hope you enjoy these regional sessions.
And good afternoon from Yellowknife Northwest Territories, and welcome to our breakout session. It's a beautiful, balmy -15 here. I'm Kathy Bolstad, the CEO of Northwest Territories Tourism, and it's really nice to see a few names that are familiar and a few names that I don't know. We have a small session here, so I'm hoping it's going to be a good one for you. I'm looking forward to sharing with you a number of things today. And the first thing I'm going to do is try and get my screen up for you so that my presentation can accompany me. So let me just do that for you. And I'm hoping that works. And if it's not, if you can use the feed loop chat. I have Julie Warnick, our communications officer, in here with me. And thanks, Robin Williams, for a little bit of technical support. I'm really happy to be with you today. And what I want to talk to you a little bit about is Northwest Territories Tourism, who we are, how we're navigating this COVID-19 pandemic, some of our important partnerships along this journey that are our national partnerships. And as I take you along and through that, I want to talk to you about our plan for resilience for our industry once again, because after all, it's about the people that we work for, work with, and it's about hope. So about Northwest Territories Tourism, for those of you that are new, this is a picture of one of our board of directors. We don't have a recent picture because we've just had our election. And of course, we were not able to be together and get a photograph, but we're a nonprofit society. We were established in 1996, and we are a unique tourism industry association because we have half of our elected directors are working directly in the industry in the Northwest Territories. And half of our directors who govern our board are Indigenous government appointed directors. And what's unique and different about us is that inherent in our structure is the fact that we have such a variety of Indigenous cultural experiences across the Northwest Territories that are inherent in the makeup of who we are. And our Tourism Industry Association recognizes that in how we govern and set the goals for our tourism industry and the marketing of that. You'll also notice that we've got dual responsibilities. So while you're in a territorial breakout session for across the country for provinces and territories, most of your tourism industry associations, with the exception of Quebec and the Northwest Territories, are both a TIA and a destination marketing organization. And I wanted to flag that for you because as I take you through this, we are indeed navigating a pandemic as both a DMO and a TIA, and you could imagine what the balancing scale is like when typically in a normal annual year, $30,000 of revenue comes to us from our members and it supports the work of the association, but really 4.6 million comes from the government of the Northwest Territories to do marketing. And when you're in a pandemic, not only is there a huge curveball that comes at your marketing and what you have to do, but there's a huge weight and rock that lands on the scale that tips the balance of advocacy. And so I'm going to take you through how our organization and our small team of what started as 10 and is now 9 in Yellowknife has been doing to get us through this pandemic. I want to take you back to February 4th. So this was Hockey Day in Canada in Yellowknife, and that's me on the right there with that spectacular NWT car, and I think it's our mayor and one of our members of the Legislative Assembly, and I think our conference bureau manager in the car. And we were actually at the peak of our winter aurora season. We were marketing to the Northwest Territories residents through Hockey Day in Canada the importance of tourism, and we were showing residents what we were doing across the country in Canada as part of a large-scale marketing campaign. And it was really a campaign focused on transformational tourism with a theme, this place, Spectacular Northwest Territories would change you. And so I wanted to put these images in here because while we have been focused on COVID-19 and navigating that, it's always good to remember where we were when it all started and how vibrant and wonderful this industry is. And of course, as COVID emerged, you can imagine that we had to abandon a campaign that was involving virtual reality and sharing masks, whether those masks were in the cars that were in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, or Calgary, or whether it was masks at consumer shows we planned to be at. Our marketing was interrupted. And that interruption came at a time, and I think similar, our story is not unlike what you were seeing across the country. We had a 5-year marketing strategy that saw us trying to achieve 235 million in terms of visitor spend and 137,000 visitors to the Northwest Territories by March 2021. You can see by the green and then the amber trajectory towards our 5-year goal, and then the plummet where we are and where we anticipate we're going to be in March 2001. And I want to say that in the Northwest Territories, because our operators began to see the impacts of COVID as early as late December and into January, we saw a huge impact very early on the Northwest Territories Aurora sector. And we've just come through our fall sector where it's their second season where they've been hit. So the Northwest Territories, you've heard it across the industry, was hit, tourism was hit hard, hit fast. Our industry, which is different from many of the places across the country, has a very vibrant winter industry in Aurora. And so it came hard and fast and early for our organization. This is one of our beautiful wildlife from the Northwest Territories. You wouldn't want to come up and confront him with your car. He's pretty big. But we face this challenge head on, and we don't do it alone. We do it with our industry members. We've done it with TIAC and Destination Canada. And really, if I could summarize sort of the key things that we had to do was very quickly, and benefiting from the lead of our national partner, Destination Canada, who developed a framework for response, recovery, and resilience. We built what we called our RRR framework for the Northwest Territories, and wearing both of our hats, the DMO hat as the marketer and the industry association as the advocate for the industry, we created a guidance document called RRR for both of those, enabling the part of our team that works with government to really work on the needs for industry, and those who are in marketing to work with Destination Canada and our government funding partners on flexibility around the marketing. You saw a little bit of our big campaign that was in full force, and our marketing director, Joel Walton, would say, we can't go dark. We need to keep this destination alive. And so very quickly, he and his team ensured that while digital marketing was stopped, except for search, while content and path to purchase pushes to operators with intention to buy, messaging was changed, we made sure we were still alive in the search world when the COVID pandemic hit us. And I'll talk a little bit later about our staycation program, but we had a very deliberate discussion as a DMO about if we have to pivot our marketing and market to our own residents, what do we do with our brand, Spectacular NWT? And how does that fit in a COVID environment where there's a little bit of fear about tourism? So I'll talk to you a bit about that later. But I can say, and I think I talked about it, the balance of the scale in terms of marketing and advocacy. I don't think I've ever been busier as a CEO on advocacy and have had to disconnect from the marketing of our organization because we were working weekly with the provincial and territorial tourism industry associations across the country on what were the industry issues. And we were working with TIAC to understand how together in surround sound, the PTTIA, Northwest Territories Tourism, and TIAC could talk to different federal ministers and governments about what our industry needed. And so we really advocacy amplified, I think, from March, and that continues. And of course, as many have seen, budgets changed and changed and changed. So I want to give you just a quick look. This is one example of our industry recovery framework. And in this industry recovery framework, this is a tool that we began to use in all of our discussions with our funding partner for marketing, believe it or not, because we needed the ability to get some research that wasn't being done by our own government of the Northwest Territories, and to move some marketing for that. And we needed to use this tool to have conversations with the government of the Northwest Territories about their own emerging Wisely plan, where the tourism industry fit in it. And some of the learning we had in this situation since March is, if you look up, and I don't know if you can see on your screens there, you can see that we had some time frames from current situation back in March and April to envisioning recovery in the tourism industry happening in summer of 2020 and then fall of 2020. And we really were, I think, hopeful that we would get through this and turn around quickly. And of course, the learning we've had is that pathway may be a little bit forward, and there may be a dance with 2 steps and 1 step back, but we still have a framework that we're testing and checking and having conversations with the government about what industry needs, depending on where we are in this framework. I want to talk to you about the strength of advocacy. We are a small little organization, and one of the first things we did in March was give our members free membership and go out and get as many tourism members as we could to connect them to our advocacy work. But these are some of the things that we have done and continue to do. So working with TIAC and the PTTIA, I think between March and July, there were many, many letters to federal ministers, territorial ministers, meetings with ministers, attendance at roundtables, presentations at parliamentary committees and standing committees. And, I want to shout out to Charlotte Bell and Vince and her team. As we prepared for parliamentary committees, we were able to have good conversations with Charlotte about, your presenter, so am I a presenter. I'm going to cover these northern issues to hit those tourism industry points. What are you going to cover? So that we made sure industry as a whole was covered, but good northern examples were provided in the different venues that we were working in. The other area that we worked in partnership with the PTTIA and TIAC was in terms of industry surveys. And as the DMO, we also worked in partnership with the government of the Northwest Territories. The government has the research mandate, but it also has the product development mandate and the industry relief and recovery mandate for the tourism industry and its relationship with the federal government on that. And so the development of our survey to our members and the timing of that was done so that we didn't duplicate what the government of the Northwest Territories was doing, so that we could validate numbers they were already collecting and get them updated and enable their economic impact analysis. But so we could also check what was happening in our industry relative to what TIAC was seeing in its national surveys. An example would be TIAC, I think, reports that 60%, I think, of the businesses in the tourism industry are small, 20 people or less. And we were seeing similar trends and able to validate that in the survey we did with our members. We also saw that the North was missing from the resident sentiment research being done by Destination Canada. And it's always a challenge to get the North because it's such a big place and a variety of samples. And so one of the things we did as an organization wearing our DMO hat, but recognizing it would be important also as an industry association, was reallocated some of our marketing money to go out and get the resident sentiment measure of what's happening based on the COVID communications. And we have that now. And we now have additional funding to remeasure that as the COVID recovery starts to move forward. And that's going to guide our conversations with government about how they communicate. And it's going to guide our marketing director in terms of his staycation, his brand management, and a number of other things around our marketing. And so these are just examples, I think, of how we've been working, but not in isolation of our colleagues across the country or our funding partner for marketing. I want to touch briefly on some of the advocacy outcomes. I'm not going to speak here about the numerous federal programs that were rolled out, from CEWS to the Northern Business Relief Fund, that were so critical and so important to our industry. Our advocacy was around, we need to have an industry and an ecosystem at the end of the COVID pandemic and liquidity for operators. We saw with the cancellation of summer hunting, fishing, paddling, huge needs for Northern Airlines supports. Primarily because those sectors really are supports to the, the Air Tindys of the world or to the North Right Airs of the world. But we saw some small wins with our own government of the Northwest Territories in terms of waiving those costs for tourism operators that were adding to their costs. So whether it was their tourism operator license fees or flexibility from the government of the Northwest Territories to allow them to close and turn down what's normally required as their liability insurance. There were some good wins on a small scale there, in addition to the large funding supports. And the Northern Business Relief and Recovery Fund through CanNor was really well subscribed to by our members and appreciated. This is a snapshot, and this, of course, is a more recent one. You can see this is the marketing recovery plan that Joel Walton, our marketing director, and his team have updated, reflecting that we recognize in the marketing that we're doing that we're really going to have to, as we come through recovery, focus on the Northwest Territories residents first, open up to Canada, see visiting friends and family as some of our key first markets. And we know we're going to be competing with Canadians across the country and DMOs who are working together to revive and keep Canadians traveling in Canada. But as a northern destination with probably less airline connections, it's going to be tough for us, but we have a framework, we have a plan, and I'm very confident that our marketing team is navigating that with strength and with the partnership of Destination Canada. And this plan for us is really moving in line with the Government of the Northwest Territories Emerging Wisely Plan and its phases, which we don't have control over, but what we do have control over is our response and our partnerships with our industry to make sure our recovery is as speedy as it possibly can be. So I want to talk briefly, and I know I will never talk as well about this as our marketing director who lives and breathes this day in, day out with his team, but we have a plan, and I want to convey that there is hope in how we're thinking about tourism. Because in addition to the advocacy as the DMO, while we don't know when the travel restrictions are actually going to enable tourism travel again, we have a Northern Staycations plan now that has been built with media partners across the North, which is doing an important job in building back, I would say, the view that travel is a good thing, at least within communities for now, and staycations and supporting local business. And we'll be doing staycations as we go into the year ahead. And we see our staycation planning and the content that we're delivering and targeting to Northwest Territories residents as we get them to travel with each other and Canadians to travel here is ultimately going to build some brand ambassadorship around our product and our destination and position us for recovery. At the same time, our marketing team recognizes our international connections have played a very important role for our winter Aurora tourism. And so we're keeping those markets alive. We're very active in virtual training sessions to those markets. Our general sales agents are still there working with us. And we know that when the switch turns on and travel begins again, we will have kept those markets very apprised of what's available, what's wonderful about our destination. This is a sample, I think, of some of the pivot marketing that our team did as we, I would say, moved a little bit less from that path to purchase of pushing people to buy now, shop, connect to this operator. We've gone to a more softer call of action. The content that our team is generating is really a soft content. At the end of the day, we've got beautiful, wide open, spectacular spaces. And when our destination is ready for the visitor to come back, and when our health system is enabling that to happen, our marketing team is well positioned and under their RRR plan has the messaging and the plan to change the messaging on a push button and turn up, press the accelerator, I guess is what I would say. And I think before I go back to just to budget and how we've done some of those things, I want to say that Destination Canada has been an amazing partner for us on the national scale, because as we have turned money back from marketing into operator supports in the Northwest Territories, which I'll talk about in a moment, Destination Canada has actually turned money back into offset some of those losses for us to enable us to keep the dream alive in those target markets for us that are going to be our target markets post-COVID. I want to talk about the budget dance we've done. I talked earlier a little bit about, we're both a DMO and we're a TIAC. And so back in March, our board of directors accepted my recommendation. We immediately provide free memberships to our members, and we try and connect as many people in the tourism industry to us as possible so they could connect to our advocacy work. As you can imagine, free memberships is great, but our organization as a small DMO relies on, in its budget, about $300,000 a year to actually fund the organization to operate as a DMO. And so with the downturn and the effect on our industry, we actually had a huge budget impact, and we went down one staff in our team and are still down one staff. And that will grow back as our industry begins to be able to be a partner with us again. In June, we actually turned back our regional marketing money and our special initiative marketing money that we work with the government of the Northwest Territories to the government of the Northwest Territories. And we had very strategic conversations with them as a funding partner and with CanNor, which administers the Northern Business Regional Relief Funding. And together, the two governments and Northwest Territories Tourism found a way that this marketing money could help leverage additional federal funds for what was the GRIT program administered by the GNWT. And that program was announced by GNWT as a $1.5 million assistance fund for recovery for operators. And so that's a really good news story. And in September, we rolled back another $600,000 out of marketing back into additional operator relief and recovery from the GNWT. So you can imagine, as a small TIA that's operating as a DMO, we were back with our board multiple times, and I think we're on budget revision number 5 going to the board in December, because we've had an injection based on a 3-year proposal now that's going to help us again. So there's definitely been a dance. I think it's a dance many of you are familiar with, whether you're a tour operator or you're another TIA. This has been our new world, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But we dance nevertheless. I want to talk about staycations very briefly, and I'm just conscious of time because you may have questions. I think I'll just say that we undertook a staycation campaign. We have 43,000 residents in the Northwest Territories, but we had 120,000 visitors to the Northwest Territories in 2018-19. We know we will never make up the revenue that comes to us from the visitors outside the Northwest Territories, but we seized this opportunity to provide free advertising on multiple channels. So, Cabin Radio, Northern News Services, print and online, in Up Here magazine. And we really worked with Northern media partners to connect those tour operators that were up and running with businesses who were interested in taking a staycation. And we made a deliberate, and I believe a very smart approach, not to put our brand, Spectacular Northwest Territories, on these, as we were picking up and seeing, and this was prior to us measuring resident sentiment, that there was a nervousness associated with COVID and travel, and it was better for us to not connect that promotion at that time, and we're still not doing that to our brand. And at the right time, when we see that nervousness begin to go, we'll transition that brand to the Spectacular brand as we transition out of marketing to the Northwest Territories and to beyond. All of our marketing outside of the Northwest Territories still remains on the brand. I want to talk about survey briefly. We did a Northwest Territories resident survey, and I think the numbers speak to themselves. 92% of our residents say tourism is important to the Northwest Territories economy. And that's a really positive news story, because if our residents see that tourism is important, that's going to make it easier for us to turn them around as we see a vaccine and COVID threats minimize. 78% of Northwest Territories residents say that Canadian visitors traveling domestically is good for the NWT, and that bodes well for the work Joel and his team are going to be doing with Destination Canada and the Destination Canada NICE campaign. 54% of NWT residents feel the benefit of tourism to their community outweighs any negative impacts. This is a number I'm concerned about. More than 80% of Northwest Territories residents, when measured by the GNWT in a community survey on this particular question prior to COVID, there was more than 80% felt tourism outweighed the negative benefits. So you can see, or we can see, there's been an impact of COVID communications on what is perceived to be negative impacts of tourism. And of course, our hope is, as we begin to see a vaccine become available and the Emerging Wisely plan move and get better, we expect that number to grow, and we have plans to remeasure these twice in the next 6 to 10 months. I think I'm running out of time, and I don't know if there are questions, Julie, so I'm just going to check. No questions yet. So, our profile of survey respondents was 75% licensed tour operators and those in the support sector. And when we did this survey was in September, 21% of tourism businesses that were surveyed said they remained fully open. 42% were either temporarily closed or permanently closed. And they really were challenged with meeting the requirements that were health requirements to open, and struggled with revenues as part of that picture. The impact on the workforce, while we saw some hire, so 22% of our respondents had actually hired, the net impact of hiring and jobs lost was that 848 jobs had been lost in the tourism sector in the Northwest Territories, and 57% of our respondents had been laying off employees. That is the last estimate we had from Stats Canada was in 2018, that there was about 3,000 jobs that were employed in the tourism industry. So you can see the hit has been hard on our industry in terms, close to a third of jobs in the tourism industry have been lost. We also asked about revenues, and 88% of our respondents said their sales for just the first 7 months had decreased. And of those, 75% confirmed decreased by over 50%. And 63% of our respondents said they'd relied on non-NWT residents for 90% or more of their revenue in 2019. So you can imagine for tour operators and for a marketer to switch to an NWT resident staycation campaign, you can see the challenge for everyone. And one of the things we heard from one of our members was the Northern Staycation program was fantastic. They had busy people in and out. They saw many guests. But the reality, and we saw it in the revenues, was if only they could have charged regular rates, because NWT residents can paddle, can snowmobile, can do all the things that the tour operators are offering people that can't do those things normally, and they're not quite willing to pay for them as much as our guests from outside are. Our businesses have told us that without additional government support, 40% are uncertain about the survivability of their business. 37% think they can survive more than 7 months, but again, this is, without additional support. And 23% say they will survive less than 6 months. So a summer tourism season is extremely important. Liquidity for this industry, if they can't operate, is extremely important. And those are messages we continue as the TIAC for the organization to bring to all of the federal funding partners. And a number of letters went out this week at the federal ministerial level. We hear loud and clear from our tourism industry members that opening borders is the solution, and none of us are in control of that in a health pandemic. What we're able to do for our members is pursue liquidity initiatives for them, get help for them to cover their costs, get help for them to pay their debt, and help them reconfigure to these new norms as we come through the plan. And I want to just say that Northwest Territories Tourism is doing that. We are meeting with members of parliament. We are meeting and sending letters to government ministers. And we are working now, as of this morning, with the COVID Secretariat in the Northwest Territories to see if we can map out some specific plans to assist operators in being a little more ready than we might be right now for an opening when it begins to happen. And did I just go too far? And so I think the last thing I really want to say is, and I stole this slide from our marketing director, and I think it's a great slide. We're in a tough time. We're all in it together. Our story looks similar to the story across the country for airlines, for hotels, for tourism operators, for restaurants, for small business. But at the end of the day, behind every business or in the front lines are people, and they're precious. And 80% of our tourism industry, despite some of those numbers you've seen, has said they believe their business will recover. And Northwest Territories Tourism, as their DMO and as their TIAC, is going to stand behind them, beside them, and in front of them wherever we need to make sure that we get back to resilience and to those gorgeous numbers that we saw previously. And so I don't know if there's time for one or two thoughts, questions on the feed loop chat line. Julie's standing beside me, but I think we're close to finished. Is there anything that I need to say to anyone? And I really appreciate that you've come today. I hope it's been some insight. I know it's a snapshot of where we're at and what we're doing, and it's just that, a snapshot, but you certainly can call our team anytime and we'll let you know what we're doing. With that, I want to thank you for joining our session.
Thank you to all our provincial and territorial partners. Merci à tous nos partenaires provinciaux et territoriaux. Voilà ce qui nous amène à conclure le congrès touristique de l'AITC. It has been a packed 2 days. Don't worry if you've missed any sessions, as recorded sessions will be available to members on the TIAC website. You'll be able to access recorded sessions beginning on November 23rd. Please join us at 2:30 p.m. Eastern for an industry social and celebration with Air Canada, Destination Toronto, and WestJet, as we honor our Hall of Fame inductees, present our Lifetime Achievement Award, and put on a special salute to Canadian tourism. Joignez-vous à nous à 14h30 heure de l'Est pour une activité sociale et une cérémonie organisée par Air Canada, Destination Toronto et WestJet. Nous rendrons hommage aux personnes intronisées au Temple de la Renommée, remettrons notre prix d'excellence pour l'ensemble des réalisations et saluerons tout particulièrement le tourisme canadien. Merci encore d'avoir été les nôtres pour ce tout premier congrès touristique virtuel de l'AITC. Et n'oubliez pas le mot-clic, le tourisme compte. Thank you so much for joining us for this first ever virtual TIAC Tourism Congress. I'm Catherine Callery, and it's been my distinct pleasure and honor to be your MC on this very important Tourism Congress for 2020. It's been quite a year, but we're going to get through this together as an industry. This is a very resilient industry, and it shows the importance of all of us gathering here today and tuning in. We've had over 3,000 registrants tune in over the last 2 days. It just shows the importance of coming together. So keep at it. We're going to get through this. And remember, #tourism counts.